Hey everybody, so today we're in Sullivan's Island, South Carolina at Fort Moultrie, and we are celebrating Carolina Day, which is also known as the Battle of Sullivan's Island. It's the 248th anniversary of it, so are you ready?
Yes.
I'm ready too, so let's go.
You would have noticed 9 British warships right offshore here, battling with the folks, yes, in the Palmetto log fort that once stood on this site. Day-long battle, the British Navy is driven off, heavily damaged. An early victory in the Revolution for the Patriot side, even though the fighting actually started back April of 1775 up in Massachusetts. So, what we're going to do in order for we have a modified heat schedule, so you can tell, well, at least it's not blazing right now, which is good, welcoming the overcast. But we're going to do the musket demonstration here in a minute. At 11 o'clock, we're going to move directly behind us back to that black barrier where, again, Commander Eric will demonstrate the mortar demonstration. We did have some field pieces coming like cannons. This heat has thrown a lot of people off, so actually the cannons could not come. We will back over to the visitor center an hour from now at 11:30 for more talking, but in the comfort of the air conditioning in the auditorium. So if y'all want to learn more, I'm going to save that for the visitor center at 11:30 for the program in there. But musket's going to be now, mortar directly behind us at 11 o'clock. And then if you want to learn more, the visitor center at 11:30. So one thing before I hand it over to Commander of the 2nd South Carolina, Intrepid Eric Nason right here, and not only Eric and his troops here, but you see folks like Mr. Rich here, all in khaki, and folks that are appearing up on the walls there, range guards. So not only these folks and our park volunteers like Jim and Rich, and I just said the magic word, they're volunteering. So we could not put on public programs without the support of folks like this. So let's give them all a big hand. And in the interest of getting underway.
So again, what we're going to show you.
You need the mic?
No, I don't need a mic.
He doesn't need the mic. If he does, just give him the thumbs up in the back there.
Y'all can hear
Thank
me,
you, sir.
right?
All right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. A lot of times they say you put me in command because of my tactical knowledge. No, I got a big mouth. But again, what we're going to demonstrate is what the 2nd Regiment was, which was primarily an infantry regiment. We were trained in the use of the musket. An average soldier knew how to prime and load 15 to 20 seconds. That was their job. Now, again, during this battle, our primary role was to support artillery. Though we did engage with muskets, we were prepared to support because the rear of the fort was open. We're ready to stand in case the British did make it across the inlet, which they never did. Thank you, Colonel Thompson and of course the Catawba Indians. We're primarily supporting the artillery. This was something we drilled every single day, so the men did not think. If anyone knows understand the Army, you don't want a private to think anyways. It's all automatic. What they're trained to do is they have a cartridge box to their side. The primary medical requirements being the Army, 2 opposing good teeth. The rest is blank. Because we bite off a paper cartridge. Everything's pre-made. Number of fingers required to join the Army is 5. You need 2 to grasp, 2 to hold, and 2 to keep the musket steady. That's it. If you can jump up and down, generally follow orders, you're in the Army. Congratulations. That's what they're trained to do, is how to come in, bite, prime, load. 20 seconds. The hardest thing for them to learn is to return that rammer, because if you leave the rammer in and you fire it at the enemy, now you got a 13-pound club. We practice that over and over again. I'm sure you'd like to see that done. Take care! Shoulder! Box! Single files, left, march! To the front! March! Drills later. Take, ready! Take, aim! Fire! Good volley! Prime and load! Take, aim! Fire! Ceasefire! Turn it! Hold it! 2 steps to the rear! March! Show them! Hawks! Single files land! Take care! Halt! Ladies and gentlemen, the members of the 2nd Regiment, South Carolina Continental Line. Order! Halt! Yes, Mother Nature does have a say. Black powder and humidity does not mix. And that's why generally we talk about fighting down here in the South. Most units up north would go in, of course, winter camp, Valley Forge. We went into summer camp. Unfortunately, not the same games. But we were going to summer camp because it's just too hot, too humid. As you know, we had a lot of called flash in the pans. Anyone? Anyone? None of you guys have ever heard the expression of flash in the pan. That's why. When you're getting ready to shoot and all you get is a little poof, that musket didn't go off. That's a bad thing because that musket ball didn't go out. And if these men are not well trained, well, I'm just going to load again. You triple load this musket, you will get a surprise. It's called rocket propulsion before it was actually created. So they were very cognizant, but you have to understand the musket, as far as nice big musket ball, is not the primary weapon of the battlefield. It's the bayonet. Who's got a bayonet? Fix bayonet so they can see the true piece of the battlefield. That is what won the battle. The fire, the noise, the musket ball was just that. It was a noisemaker. The British were very, very, very good at this. We weren't. It took us a long time until we had enough men, order pilots, to use this weapon here. Because we didn't have enough, every time the British would charge, we go, deuces, we're out of here. I am not facing the British with bayonets. We're gone. Till the French started providing us in 1779, where we started getting bayonets, we learned how to fight with a bayonet, that we could stand to the British. So you look at the southern battles afterwards, were very, 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 very bloody. Guilford Courthouse, Utah Springs. Now we're fighting on even keel with the British. But until then, they would hold the field because we retreated. There's no way we could stand to it. So it's not that the musket ball, it's still a big ball. 75 caliber is a big ball. Trust me, if it hits you, you're going to feel it. That thing, on the other hand, will encourage you to leave the field. And a lot of us go. So, any questions we have for you before we transition over to the artillery?
Are they that was seemed quiet. Is it louder with the musket balls?
Extremely. Imagine whistling noises of something that big. Now we do aim. Our British counterparts generally would not aim for the simple reason. When you're standing this close, shoulder to shoulder, guess what comes along the side of the muskets? A lot of men would get their faces burned. So they'll turn their heads. And you can't blame them. But if you do this naturally, your musket rises. Stuyvesant saw this and he told our men, well, aim. There are no sights in this thing. These are smooth bores. But if Lisa, you look over the barrel, it comes down. We have a lot of numerous accounts, especially Utah Springs. Merriam wrote about how the musket balls are flying over his head and the leaves were just raining down all around him. Not a single man got hit. That's the size of the ball. And it's soft lead. So if it does hit you, yeah, you'll feel that one in the morning. That's why the surgeons are very busy. Because generally, if you shatter the bone, you're going to lose the limb. Yes, sir.
Just asking, when you put the bayonet on, does the musket still work?
Yep, you can shoot right through it. So generally when we start a battle, we'll fix bayonets first, fire it through, and we are going to advance. Both sides will advance till we get close enough to charge.
So you could like shoot them and use the bayonet to finish the job?
Yep.
Over
I'll ask my colleague from the 33rd. Sir, we have done this on numerous occasions, have we not? We have.
And we like him.
We like him though. We don't aim at him though. We like him. So yes, we do.
Can the bayonet affect your aim?
No,
No.
because there is no aim. This is a smooth bore, which means when that ball comes out, it's doing this. It has a mind of its own. Again, because the powder is not very well made, it's not. It looks like cornflakes. It has a very loose burn, so when it comes out, the ball does this. It can actually go bloop. If depending on your range, if we're at about, let's just say, 100 yards, you get hit with the ball, it's going to fall and just hit the ground. Does no damage. As you get closer, a little bit higher potential. These things only have an effective range of about 35 yards. Thing is, at 35 yards, we start running each other. You can close that distance, and trust me, if you're being shot at, your adrenaline is going to pick up. It's amazing. You become a world-class sprinter. And you're going to charge and close with the enemy for the simple reason you don't want them to shoot at you anymore. And you close and get close with the enemy. That was the biggest issue at Guilford Courthouse. When we were fighting in the third line, we had done this. Cornwallis could not get the line to break. It's like two pit bulls fighting each other. The British and the Patriots were so close. I mean, it's to the point of fists, knives, tomahawks, bayonets, rocks, anything. He told his artillery commander to fire on everybody to break them apart. They couldn't just hit and back off. No, they were so caught in the moment of that hand-to-hand combat, he couldn't break up the fight. It was the same with Utah Springs. The only reason why we lost the initiative of Utah Springs is most of our men were naked. We saw a wonderful British camp full of food, coffee, and clothes. Like, oh, I'm naked. Okay, straight up. And we lost the initiative because everyone was getting dressed. Because a lot of them, like I mentioned, in our regiment or then the South Carolina Brigade, were literally naked. We had no clothes. They had clothes. They were falling back. Unfortunately, we couldn't regain the initiative.
And they had rum, sir.
And they had rum. Rum's good for you. Any other questions? Ma'am.
Why is his uniform different?
Actually, he has a better uniform. Now, at the very beginning of the war, we were all issued wool clothes because that was the proper uniform at the time. Now, seeing that we were garrisoned here in South Carolina, if anyone going downtown and you got some of the tour and you know about the rainbow-colored houses, young ladies of the evening who are willing to lease services, lease for a little while, love wool coats. Our men learned that. Lonely soldiers, away from home, would go downtown for a little R&R, come back with no coat. These are expensive. So we finally realized we're losing too many coats. We took back all the coats, except for us officers. We had to keep our coats because they were issued, we had to buy ours. The men were issued linen frocks, linen shirts. This is what became the standard uniform, even for Continental soldiers. It's a lot easier, it's a lot lighter, and the men are not suffering from heat injuries. It got to the point that instead of issuing a full set of uniforms, they'll issue a regiment a bolt of cloth. The men with men was called a split shirt. If you can make a poncho, cut a hole in the middle, and make some arms, you got a uniform. And it breathes a lot easier than this thing does. As officers, we were required to go downtown, go to a tailor shop, have our uniforms made. Yes, we had one member of our regiment, I know for a fact, made a silk uniform. Obviously, he didn't go to the field much. Won't survive the field. But average of us is a wool uniform. We are wearing 3 layers. But this is what the average soldier would wear following 77 all the way up to the end of the war. Linen. It's easier to breathe, easier to maintain. What other questions do y'all have?
After about 6 shots,
That's it? We got it all?
You're waiting to go inside.
Oh, you want to go inside? Oh, go see. I actually got to go fight the cannon. We're around all over the place. Please ask questions. At 11 o'clock, we'll be shooting the mortar. 11:30, course inside. Feel free to go through the camp. Feel free to come over to the display.
To Fort Moultrie, our 248th anniversary of the Battle of Sullivan's Island. Commander Eric's going to talk about his mortar here, and as soon as he's got the primers on the way, so as soon as they arrive, and thanks, man, we will start.
The reason why it's really good to start off with the mortar because, well, that's how the battle started. But you gotta use your imagination. A lot bigger than this one. This is a 2-inch mortar. The Thunderer, which is what the British used to start the battle, was a 10-inch mortar. And she had 2 of them. So what I'll do is I'll fire it first so you all can get a general idea. Then, as I wait to fire it the second time, I'll talk about the different artillery pieces that were used here at the fort, how they were loaded, the different types of shot that were used, the difference between what a mortar will use, what a howitzer will use, what a regular cannon will use, different crew positions. And by then, the 10 minutes should be up and you're ready to shoot because I'm sure you all enjoy suntanning out here in this wonderful South Carolina heat.
No, not yet.
Okay, there's 2 in there, Eric.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say I'm just gonna put my finger in there. You want to plug? Do this quickly. Oh, no, I messed it up. I'm going okay. I don't think you can go get it stuck in there quick enough, are we? Hang on. Uh-oh. It's gonna happen fast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, watch your ears.
Ears.
Maybe.
Was that pretty cool? Was that? You like that?
All right, so again, that's a little one.
I'm glad I had the video.
That is a 2-inch versus the 10-inch. So gun crew, pretty much
No, he's not doing it yet. He's not doing it right now.
cannons back there
What's up?
to a howitzer to a mortar.
I'm trying to make sure that you guys
Everyone
don't
had
bump into somebody.
a specific mission. Now, like guns here at the fort, generally were 18 and 24-pound naval guns. They don't have a navy anymore. Most of the ships stuck in the harbor or stuff we carried, we captured. Most of them were Spanish guns. Each one, an average gun crew, 6 pound, 18, 24, which meant the size of the cannonball it shot. Always have something called a word. Ours is small, so use your imagination, government downsizing. Depending on the length of the barrel, it's the word. Reason being, like we talked about over there, there's a cartridge. Same with the artillery, it's a cloth bag of gunpowder. Before I'm going to load another one, if I just shot it, I'll go in with this worm, and the number 1 man is going to throw in there and make sure there's nothing in there still burning. Because if it's still burning, and I put a bag of gunpowder in there, call me Stumpy. I'm going to lose something, usually my fingers. Next thing we do is the number 2 man has a sponge. Normally it's sheep's wool, wet from water, goes down the barrel. Same thing, you're extinguishing any sparks before I put the next round in. Done next round, usually a cartridge, cannonball, grape shot, canister, hot shot, whatever, SIBO, cloth bag. Number 6 man, it's called a powder monkey. The youngest member of the team, normally a young man, young soldier, anywhere between 9 and 10 years old, fleet old foot. His job is to run to the
9-year-old boys can
gun box, the commander yells out what he needs, going to run forward. On the other end of the sponge is the rammer. Going to ram it down. The number 3 person has a brass pick. Anything that's metal on a gun is made out of brass. No sparks. Don't want anything to blow up. We gotta poke a hole through the touch hole into that bag. And then what I introduce is what we call quill. We can take regular cartridges of powder, pour it down, hope the wind doesn't blow it away. What they took back then was standard quill from a feather. Cut it off, put gunpowder in it. Then you put down the hole, it doesn't go anywhere. This is slow match. It slowly burns, as long as you keep blowing on it. That's when we touch to it, that's when it goes off. Because of the chain reaction, ball goes down range, hopefully towards our enemy. Now for a straight cannon, normally the 3 standard shots you're going to use, of course, the iron ball. And it's just that. Sweat and somebody. It is a solid shot. It is not an exploding shell. For here, what they're trying to do is bash through the sides of the ship. The most casually producing weapon it can do is cause splinters. This big. That was what they were talking about. A lot of damage on those naval warships was the fact that these 18 and 24-pound guns are punching through the sides of the ship and causing these huge pieces of splinters of wood going through their arms, the legs, and the chest of the naval crewmen. The next, if they were ever get close enough, is what we call grape shot. Basically a large city ball full of about 1 pound little balls. Looks like grape. Anti-personnel weapon. The third one's called canister. Basically a can of garbage. Literally. Basketballs, broken pieces of cutlery, rocks, glass, even lengths of chain. All you're trying to do is cause injury or damage. The other 2 that we have are howitzers, mortars. These are firing shots straight up and in. Now for our mortar, this is what it is. I know, not very impressive, is it?
Cherry bomb.
For our 2-inch mortar, this is in the modern world what we call a grenade launcher. This is what it is. This is an explosive shot. It is hollow inside. It is full of gunpowder. The fuse is made out of wood. Not what you see on TV. It is not a burning fuse. I am not putting anything burning down this barrel of gunpowder. Or again, see implement about calling myself stumpy. You don't want anything going there because you will actually have a discharge. The gunner of any system is the smartest person on the team. He has to do math. Each gun had a firing table. So depending on the range, the angle, what they wanted to achieve, he would look it up. There was actually a little plumb and scale. He'll come out, he'll lay it on so during a siege. All right, I know where we'll be at, sets it, sit here and he'll trim off the fuse. Now when the gun fires, it is the flame that lights the fuse. The intent, the shot goes up, shot comes down, explodes over the heads or the target, like the fortification or wall, and blows up. Unfortunately, we weren't very good at making these. It always seemed one big piece would go one way, little piece would go another. Towards the end of the war, one guy kind of figured it out. He goes, well, if we're going to force, make these things, why not pre-score the inside like a checkerboard? Y'all probably heard his name. Shrapnel. Captain Shrapnel, Royal Artillery. Finally figured out a better way to kill each other. Now with the mortar that we had in the Thunderer, when she started the engagement, she's well around, she could not see the fort. Her first shot landed on the powder magazine. Spun around, fizzled out. Rats, something should have happened. Do you hear anything? I hear anything. Fire again. Poop. Still don't hear anything. Port observers haven't been embedded yet. Send in the fleet. They're firing, they're firing, they're firing. Well, we all know if anyone does demolitions, pay for plenty. Well, obviously, we're not doing a big enough charge. Add more charge to the gun. Boom, 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 crack.
Yep.
They broke their guns. They actually blew out the actual, so the way the guns are built on a naval warship is they're part of the actual decking. They're putting so much pressure on the gun, it cracked the deck. They are no longer effective. So now it's up to the frigates to pound the fort. So that's what they're doing. They're using straight shot. They're trying to pound this palmetto fort. We're doing the same thing. The difference is they're constantly firing. All their shot, we're waiting because we're very limited to the amount of cannons. Also, we only had about 9 guns there several hundred guns. So basically the way it worked out, 2 guns facing 1 ship. Francis Marion was in command of the furthest left 2 guns. They quake. Ready to shoot? Yeah, ready to shoot. Good aim, fire! All right, wait. Shoot again, while the British are just pouring shots. The walls are actually vibrating inside the fort because it's constantly being hit by hit by hit by hit. 18, 24, and 32-pound cannonballs are bouncing off this fort, straight shots. The fort's vibrating. Sand is cascading everywhere. The only casualties we had were 3 men because the cannonballs got through the opening, or what we call the embrasures, of the cannons, and they broke through. That's it. No one else was killed or injured because of being inside the fort. Mortar did no damage. But they continued to fire. One guy had his guts split open. His last dying breath was, "Don't let my death die without liberty. Fight on, my dear boys." Of course, we all know during the famous fight, the flag would get dropped. That is from a member of our regiment, Sergeant William Jasper, would climb down the walls, retrieve the flag. Because back then, if you see the flag goes down, you have surrendered. So the British are like, thank God they surrendered. We're running out of ammunition. We got to stop. Oops. They did surrender. We got to shoot some more. And we're going to shoot some more.
Okay.
So in case you didn't catch it the first time,
Okay, here comes number 2.
watch your ears.
Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do.
The yellow humor is the next humor, which is strictly the bile of the stomach, or your stomach acid, right? So, and then the final humor is your black humor, which is also associated with the bile, but that of the gall or the intestine, so your fecal matter, right? And so, if you are presenting with an illness, I have to discern which of the four humors your illness is likely associated with, and all I have to do to return you to health is relieve you of that excess. That's why a lot of medicine of the day was actually purged. Enemas were a big thing. There was a lot of like Epsom salt. We use Epsom salt today to for sore muscles and feet. But if you read the warning bag on or the warning on a bag of Epsom salt, it says do not consume. They were 100% consuming it because it's also a very powerful diuretic, right? And so if your
Why do
illness,
they have a warning now?
well, because right, if you're not being watched by a doctor, you can severely dehydrate yourself.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so that was the goal, right? And they were doing it under the instruction of their medical care provider.
Okay, fine. Until you're 3 months later, you're like, there's a story from up north where because the Continental Congress promising our daily ration and you never got it, they weren't eating for like 3 or 4 days in a row. But they were issued a cooking pot. Each tent is considered a mess. There's 5 guys per tent. Each tent got a cooking pot. That's where you cook your food in. But you don't have food to cook in it, so the pot goes away because it's one less thing to carry. You can cook your food on your bayonet. You can cook your food on any number, on sticks or any number of things. Any raw meat, you can do stuff like that.
What is this over here? A piece of bait?
Yes, you have. That is because it wasn't the face value, it's the silver content. So when you cut it in half, quarter, piece of 8, that's a piece of 8.
So everyone actually had to have a wallet because as you're cutting up your change, well, you had to put the rest of it somewhere. Till we went to paper. And a lot of the soldiers didn't want paper money because it's paper. The only thing I'm going to use it for is roll-up cartridges.
Right?
And none of the merchants wanted paper. They wanted, so for us to deal with the settlers, which is very hard, Nathaniel Greene learned about this when he became the commissary general, Valley Forge. None of anyone around Philadelphia would sell food to us because the British had gold. You go, hey, it's nothing personal, it's just business. You'll have nothing. They have gold and silver. It's just business. And he finally figured out and broke the code on it and said, hey, look, we are your countrymen. We need your food, we need your stuff. But it was still a big challenge. We had a commissary general down here. The problem is just getting the supplies out to everyone. Pay, boy, we were lucky if we ever got paid. And so once we started marching, it's not like a good idea. All right, line up for pay. It's time for payday activities. Anyone in the old service people? Well, some of us in the old days remember payday activities, dress greens inspections, line up for pay call. When you're on the march, very rarely did you have actually opportunity. They did, in the early book, we actually did record a couple times. We did assemble for pay, but it was very hard because the pay chests could never keep up. Same with logistics, they couldn't keep up. We, for the most part, we were living off of our backpacks or haversacks, whatever food we had with us. Generally it was rice. Wagons were such a rare commodity. We didn't, like I said, this tent city behind us, it was great, we were in garrison. But once we marched, we were well ahead of the wagons. The roads back then were in horrible conditions. We could march faster. A lot of men would be wearing moccasins instead of leather shoes in the summer days, just because leather would be rotting out. I can make moccasins easy. They would average 10 to 11 miles a day over, a road barely 4 feet across. So, but this is generally what you see, what an infantryman would carry. Not all, but again, with the firelocks. The top one is a 2nd Mile Brown Bess. It is 75 caliber, effective range of about 35 to 40 yards. If you look at the end of it, you see the size of the musket ball. And on the other side of that is what we call a buck and ball. Because it is a smooth bore, well, now I'm going to make it into a shotgun. So they'll take an extra 2 or 3 smaller balls. Normally bird shot or buckshot, they'll add it just to add a little more damage. In the middle of the French Charlevilles. So when the French government says, yes, we are here for you, my American friends. We will send you 30,000 French muskets. What they didn't tell us was that the French army just got brand new muskets. So they went through all their armories, and all the most god-awful muskets they had, they got rid of. They put them on ships and sent them here. So when the 30,000 muskets arrived here in Charleston, our armorers could only make 3,000 muskets. That worked, because they're in such horrible shape. But at least we got muskets, of course what we call a stand of arms. You get a musket, you get, of course, the bayonet that goes with it, and a cartridge box. They would issue us, this is a French knapsack. Our cavalry would wear actually a French uniform. The rifle in the bottom is that. It is a rifle. It has a rifling barrel. That's a North Carolina long rifle. It is only 44 caliber. The difference is that has an effective range of over 300 yards. Now the top 2 muskets, they can be loaded in anywhere between 15 to 20 seconds. It takes me a minute to load my rifle. Wherever I aim at, I will hit, guaranteed. The other 2 are noisemakers. let's just get close enough to use that bayonet. And you see what a cartridge looks like on top. So again, you see the little tail. So again, a well-trained soldier will know where to put their thumb, because even that takes practice. If you bite too low, enjoy that flavor of gunpowder. You bite too high, you're not going to get an opening. So they get learned to feel where that powder is, and they'll bite, tear, they pour a little bit into the pan, and then literally the rest will go down, and they'll basically squeeze it a little bit for the gunpowder to come out. The ball's inside, so they're just going to squeeze the paper together so it becomes like wadding, and then it goes into the barrel. Then they have to learn to pull out the rammer, ram it, bring it back out, and return. That is the most difficult part of the loading process, is for them to remember to return their rammers. Because the heat of the moment, a private may not, and we want them to be automatic. We don't even think about it. Sometimes they get scared, heat of the action, ramrod's left in the musket, and they'll fire it. It causes a weird action on the other side, but now you have a 13-pound club. Because once you fire it, there is actual residue on the inside. Literally at the very beginning of the fight, you could actually pour powder and drop the ball, and it'll go right to the bottom. It won't touch anything. 2, 3, 4. Now you're starting to get some fouling. It won't be able to get in there. For the rifle, because there's no bayonet in the end, that's why it never became a military rifle, because it also takes, it's individually created. That's why we have a tomahawk, and that's why we have a knife. Generally, they're going to run. Anytime, so you look at Battle of Kings Mountain, anytime a rifleman was charged with bayonets, they would say, "Bye, you come to me." They'll run as far back as they can and engage them and push them back until they can close enough with the rifles. And that will go back and forth. They were usually on the flanks. For the most part, the rifles were kept in company-sized elements until later on in the war, where we actually made a battalion of riflemen. Their job was scouting, because most of these are all hunters. This is their job, scout, they know how to hunt, and we weren't the only ones. The British had their own light infantry, and they also had the German Jaegers, professional hunters from Europe. They carried shorter but heavier caliber. Their rifles are 54 to 60 caliber rifle, and they're well trained. They fought in two-man teams. They knew how to cover each other, so did we. So it was rifle on rifle. The biggest issue they took contention with us is we told our riflemen to aim for these. Aim for the gorgets, aim for the officers, because if I was to shoot here, in the military we call this center mass. If I can punch a hole through there, I'm killing the officers. They got rather upset with us because if you kill the officers, no one's in charge. Right, that's the general idea. Well, you can't do that. That's ungentlemanlike. Again, that's the idea. So they actually brought us up in international war crimes. Because war is supposed to be fought in a gentlemanlike manner. Officers treat officers properly. They perform admirably. You can't just kill them off. We didn't care. We tried to kill them off as much as we could. It actually did save our life, because during the Battle of Brandywine, Patrick Ferguson and his rifle had General George Washington in his sights and did not fire, because he said the general was performing admirably as a professional officer should do, and he saved his life. He could have killed him on the spot. Thank goodness for us, because General Gates was actually trying to take his job. We all know what happened with him. But the rest of the equipment, usually the men would be issued a hat. For us here in South Carolina, we all wore leather helmets for the simple reason, you try running through the swamps in a tricorn. It's going to get knocked off your head. All of ours were made by saddle makers here in Charleston. Bicorns, we did have units come down here from the north, so you might see bicorns. The haversack, the little white bag, that was our catch-all. Rations is issued to you, you had to cook it immediately. So we would, if we get,
Spit it out.
salt pork or salt beef, if we were issued here in Charleston, you would actually have to spend a day soaking it even to try to cook it, because it's preserved. Saltfish, same thing. If it was live, you might get some biscuits. Yes, they can kill you.
This is edible. It's 2 years old, at least. It's still good. This will keep you. This will keep you. Yeah, you have to eat it a particular way. This will keep you alive. This isn't gourmet food that you get from the army. This is stuff that will keep you alive.
And generally, what the men were issued, they were not issued loaves of bread. They'll be issued flour and salt. They would have to make it themselves. So they'll try to find a wooden plank. They may try to find a shovel that's clean. They mix it together, and it's just, again, it's flour and salt cooked into a biscuit. And then you will, again, as you hear so hard, you can put it in your haversack, it's not going to fall apart on you. Gator, fish, the men would actually bring their own fishing kit. So anytime they're in camp, they'll try to fish, cook it immediately over a fire. But very rarely, again, with a field kitchen, that they would actually keep up. Being here in the South, rice. We did carry a lot of rice. Rice is lightweight. The problem is, rice is not filling. It's okay, it gives you immediate energy, but unless you got protein to go with it. So anything within like a 2-mile radius of a camp was eat. Which includes frog legs, all frogs, snakes, gator. If they could get it, they'll eat it. And then, of course, the rest of the stuff, again, they're going to have some type of frying pan usually if they can get it. For the eating utensils, spoon you see over there is actually made out of a horn. If they can get it and afford it, they can get a fork, they can get a special knife. They're going to have at least a cup of some type. The smaller cup is a gill cup, and that's for a reason. The water is bad. No one drank straight water. You had to mix a gill of rum in the water. So if you trust the privates, you're gonna, if I give you this, you will mix it. Down goes the rum, and then they drink the water, thus mixed. They actually have to put in because cholera, dysentery, a lot of waterborne vector diseases, because again, you got a lot of farm runoff and everything else. Even here in the swamplands, malaria, amoebic type of dysentery, very bad. You put the rum in it, sterilized. Folks, everyone was on drugs back then. Kids, guess what you drank? Beer. It's kind of a near beer, but it's basically through the actual fermenting process of the near beer, water sterilized. Women, you were drinking mostly wines. Everyone was addicted to opiates. You think today's a problem? Nothing compared to the opiate. Everyone was on the same line. It was used for everything. Teething. Ladies, when Mother Nature came a knocking, guess what you were taking? A lot of it. We usually, the surgeons would carry it, and it's just because it takes the pain away for during any type of major surgeries. So a lot of men, like I said, I have an herbal kit. I try to avoid going to a surgeon as much as possible because of the survival rate was not very high. Medicine back then, a lot of it, if you go to universities, the only real requirement to become a surgeon is not be afraid of the sight of blood. But understanding the different things of medicine, especially combat medicine, is not at all what it is today. So they would, some of them would buy their own personal kits. Money, big issue. Of course, I have my flint and steel. To make, always want to keep something light going. I have my pipe, bowl, different currencies. They prefer, down here, the Spanish real was the currency of choice. Usually it is $1 worth of Spanish silver. As you notice, this is where you can play math. To make change, you cut your coin in half. So to make a $50, you cut it in half. If you gotta make a quarter, well, you cut your $50 in half. And if you need a quarter, well, you cut your quarter in half, and now you have a piece of 8. And that's the actual term. There are other gold guineas are very hard to find. Some of the other, of course, with the British down here, you may see Irish pennies, pences, and everything else. Eventually, towards mid-war, they would come to the paper money, but no one in the army wanted paper money because it's, well, paper. No one here accepted paper. For entertainment, they also had to keep themselves clean. Bar soap, made out of lye. It was a requirement that at least once a week try to bathe, or once a month. Our regiment had a barber, and because we were required to shave once every 3 days, and this simply because if you look at these tents, 6 men per tent. Bugs, so mostly fleas, lice, ticks would jump from one man to another man to another man. If you had a beard, you're going to have a different vector cross. So typhus, cholera, the plague, smallpox. We want to stop that from spreading, so it was mandatory you can't have a long beard. Hair had to be cut. So either short or in a queue. Powdered wigs, forget about it. British, yes. Us, no. It pretty much went out of fashion. And down here, no one in his right mind is going to wear a powdered wig over this heat under these helmets for the most part. For games, they tried to do entertainment. George Washington did try to discourage gambling, but yet all the officers gambled one way or the other. They also drank heavily. So they make different games to entertain themselves with. As you notice with the cards, there's something very unique about them. No letters. Most men can't read. Officers cut, so they could play cards, but enlisted men, they really didn't play as much cards. They would play checkers, they play different things. The game with the marbles in German, we call it Moultrie, very similar to Chinese checkers. They'll be issued 1 blanket a year, that's it. They're issued 1 pair of shoes a year, that's it. So that's why I allow them within the moccasins. They get their 1 pair of stockings, maybe 2, and then they'll get a knapsack. So if it doesn't go in their haversack, it goes in that backpack. And that's it. Or a blanket. Basically, is a piece of painted canvas, and that's their waterproofing against the elements. So when they're marching, that's what they slept in. Just on the ground, musket wrapped up with them. If it's a hot day like this, they just slept on the ground, maybe on top of their waterproof blanket. If it's a little bit colder, in the blanket, generally in the elements. And that included the women and children as well, if they're marching with the army. Now, what questions do you have for me after I just rambled off all this stuff?
Huh? I don't know. You want to go back that way, or you want to go that way?
I said go back this way because they got some.
All right, we'll go that way.
Hello. So in the I don't know if you outlays of the American Revolution, and 40% of those are the slave population as well. So there's very few people anywhere, number one. In the entire colonies, all the way from New York all the way down to Georgia, there's about 2.5 million colonists and slaves. England's only got about 8 million people, but the major population center during the American Revolution is down here. There's just Americans haven't, and the English colonists have begun to push up into the backcountry. Now there's people around, don't misunderstand, but there's not a huge contingent of people living here up in this what's called literally referred to as the backcountry in 1781.
All you have to do is look like you want to talk. You don't even have to say anything. We'll just start talking. We're kind of bad that way. That most started the American Revolution. And that's why you say in your brain right now, I don't even remember learning about it in school. Is that what you're thinking? I've had a lot of people say something like that. Going, wait a minute. And then when I start talking, yeah. Okay.
They may not teach it now, but it was taught when I went to school.
Well, they teach it. People, it's just a thing that people tend to forget. Okay, so we have the 13 colonies. And at this time, each of the colonies is like their own separate country. And they have their different money. They have different laws. When they need pencils, they send to England, not to North Carolina. You know, they trade more with, they do more with England than with each other. They don't really associate with each other. So we have these 13 separate countries. They're called colonies, but they think of it that way. We have a king, and he had just fought all these wars all over the world. He had the war in the United States was called the French and Indian War. And a lot of wars, even one war is expensive, but a lot of wars, he had no money. And he needed money, so he said, I am going to tax the colonies. So he said, I'm going to put a tax on every single piece of paper. And that also included dice. No, I have no idea how dice are a piece of paper, but throw it in. Cards, you know, so you could get all the gamblers too. And the more important the piece of paper, the more you would have to pay for it. And you'd have to go to a special person who would stamp your item for you. If you didn't have a stamp, let's say you bought a house and you said, ooh, the stamp is going to be so expensive on that. If you didn't have it stamped, you could have it taken away from you.
That's just like the taxes. You don't pay the taxes, they'll take it.
Exactly. Exactly. But this is not taxes, this is taxes on the the paper. Okay, so we also have the taxes. So the colonists were not amused. They were. Everyone was upset by this because it was difficult to get the stamp. You had to, when you were going to the person to get the stamp, you had to take your South Carolina money and trade it in for gold or silver. You had to, or British currency, and pay in that. You couldn't just use South Carolina money. It was just a pain in the neck one way or another. So for the very first time, they sent representatives from 9, not 13, but from 9 of the colonies, and they came together and they formed the Stamp Act Congress. And they wrote a letter to the king. And the letter said, "Oh, you're the best king ever. You're the smartest king. No one is as wise as you." You know how when you want something, you butter them up first? Well, they did that. And they said, at the end of the letter, they said, "Could you please repeal the Stamp Act?" And he did. I know, right? So, I think they were shocked too. But they learned that if they came together, they could change things. If any 1 or 2 or 3 or even 5 of the colonies had decided to fight against the king, they would not have succeeded. But by learning that all of them working together could change things, that's how we had an American Revolution.
Oh, yeah, my counter is...
That was interesting.
Yeah. She's actually a little girl's fan, and then she would have had a matching doll fan. The original American Girl doll. You know, gotta have matching stuff. You've got lace and mother of pearl. You've got more lace. This one is linen and wood. This one's cow horn. You've got tortoise shell. Some of them have sequins on them if you're going to a party. Everything, of course, is by candlelight. There's no electricity. Candles and sequins. Get that little bling. This one, the image that you see on there was stamped on there and then they painted it in. This one is actually completely freehand painted.
Oh, wow.
So you have all different levels of I can't say the words apparently right now, but different levels of skill going into making your fans.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You want to make a fan?
You want to make a fan? What type would you like?
I got the flag in my pocket.
We've got flat ones, we've got ones that are hearts.
I think you're supposed to flip it over, Mom. It's supposed to be this way, like that.
All right, let me get you.
That's how she told me to do it. Okay.
Go.
Do you want to color it?
Color it? Got markers, crayons. All right, you want the crayons. Go.
Oh, you're making double-sided.
I haven't started on the other side yet. But I've got all day.
There is that. I am realizing that I probably didn't bring enough drink.
They've got Gatorade or water somewhere.
Yeah.
I have water.
Good. You're going to need it today. You got to stay hydrated.
How do we get this thing?
Get, what do you mean, get?
You
have to very carefully kind of just flatten it out as best you can, but then you want to be able to fold it down. So
there you go.
It takes a little bit of patience.
Oh, it's fabulous. Okay, so we're back to the car. It says it's 86 degrees, but it feels like it's 106. How'd you enjoy Carolina Day today, Mom?
It's good.
It's good.
It's better laid out than last time.
There's a lot of information out there today, and the people are actually willing to talk. I like that. We had 2 really good talkers on the video. Hope they didn't mind being recorded. So if you watch this, thank you so much for talking. I really learned a lot that I did not know. And we also found out about the Stamp Act. So I stamped the paper right there. And I was going to let you know. She's not a very good assistant sometimes. And then I made some fans. It's kind of hard to open up stuff if you're holding the phone as well. Because the sun's so bright, it's just messing with my arm. Yeah. So that's the one Mom made right here. It looks like roses or tulips on it. What were you aiming for? She was just aiming for flowers. I'll finish it. She'll finish them. And then I put polka dots on mine because I was just trying to do it really fast because it was getting hotter and hotter out there. So we haven't been to Carolina Day probably in a good while because I usually have to work whenever it's going on, but I just happened to be off this weekend. Today is June 29th, 2024 as I'm filming this, but it won't get released until sometime in July. So maybe you can come to Carolina Day next year because next year will be the 249th anniversary of it, and then the year after that, if you're interested, will be the 250th anniversary. So got this nice little brochure. Now I did not actually go into the fort today because if you've ever been to Fort Moultrie in the summertime, you know that it is hot. And I did not feel like milking any more than I did. But I do have a previous video on Fort Moultrie if you'd like to watch that. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Hope you enjoyed. If you like history, you should like this video. So that's gonna do it for this one. Yes, please do. We'll see you somewhere else. So toodaloo. Just saying bye. Bye.